Hi, today is January 5th, 2021. Notice I have no oxygen. They said it's a little low still, but they don't want me to get dizzy, so I'm doing okay. Today I'd like to bring a little short devotional from Psalm chapter 77. Been reading through while I'm here in the hospital. When God seems quiet. I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. This idea of pain in verses 1 and 2, he cried out to God for help. I remember that too. I said, Lord, I don't understand. But then he comforted me in knowing that he's still caring for me, even if I can't feel it. In distress, I sought God. Of course I sought the hospital and so forth, but God used it. And I was not comforted at night, even though I was in sleepless pain. He says, I cried out to God to hear me. At night I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. Why not? Well, because it was painful. However, the next part we can see after the pain, or even during the pain, we still trust in God. God glories in knowing that we are going beyond the practical or the pragmatic and trusting in Him. Then he goes to memories. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. Here in the hospital quite often, I don't get more than 2 or 3 hours of sleep, and not in a row. It's a different environment. But, they're caring for me, which is good. I remembered you, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about, actually I couldn't speak because I had all kinds of stuff in my lungs. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked. So in these memories, God has really done so much for us in the past. And sometimes the present is outweighing the past. We forget what He's done. We forget who He is. God's attribute is always holy, always good, always wonderful. We focus on our closest friend. Our closest friend is God. Still, we tried to meditate and to think, but the spirit's weak because of being sick. God had kept me from sleep. I couldn't even talk. So I remembered the good old days, as it says here, the songs in the night in verse 6. My songs in the night. You ever wake up at night and you just have thoughts about God? In the middle of the night, you wake up. It usually doesn't happen if you watch something nasty before you sleep. But if you read the Bible or have family devotions before you go to bed, then you have songs in the night. You have good dreams. Then I could think, those memories, cherish them. Then in verses 7 through 9, there's a rhetorical question. Rhetorical question is a question that's asked without expecting a response because it's obvious what the response is. So look in verse 7 through 9. It says, will the Lord reject forever? Of course not. God will not reject forever. Will He never show His favor again? God will show His favor again. We know He will. Verse 8, Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Well, his unfailing love is always at work. It's unfailing. Has his unfailing love vanished forever? Has his promise failed for all time? His promises never fail. God keeps his promises. They're as good as he is. Then verse 9, has God forgotten to be merciful? Has he in anger withheld his compassion? He has not forgotten his mercy. Remember, mercy is keeping punishment away from us even though we deserve it. He has not forgotten his mercy. He's continuing to be merciful and gracious to us. His promise overrides his anger at our sin. So what Asaph does in this psalm is, after bringing up these three things, the pain when God seems quiet, the memories of when God used to help, the rhetorical question saying, come on, come to grips with reality. God is God. He's wonderful. He's our closest friend. You know, sometimes I don't understand, like divorce, where people say they love each other, and then after many years, they might be together for 40 years and then say, oh, we're getting rid of each other again. It's like, what? How can that happen? Did you change? Sometimes people do change, but usually they don't. It's just that we've forgotten how the attributes of that individual. How much more so God? God never changes. So in verses 10 through 20, it's kind of cool because Asaph counts God's benefits. He says, God, you are holy. God, you are great. You did miracles. You have power. You delivered Joseph from his brothers and from prison. You delivered Jacob when he was afraid of coming to his brother Esau. You delivered the Israelites at the Red Sea. And get this is so cool. The path through the water, you can't see God's footprints. It's kind of funny. It says, when, in verses 19, your path led through the sea, your way through the mighty waters, though your footprints were not seen. 2 million Israelites fleeing from the Egyptian soldiers, going through the dry Red Sea, the parted Red Sea, and God's footprints are preparing the way. Have you seen God's footprints today? He still cares for you. He's preparing the way. Though things don't always make sense, though God seems silent, you can't see his footprints. He's preparing the way. It's so exciting that if we only focus on his promises and what he's done, who he is, we can't help but be satisfied in him. Looking beyond if you have debts to pay, or beyond if you're sick, or beyond if someone has died and you're grieving. There's so many things in life that can distract us from our relationship with God. Always, always, always look for his footprints.